What about someone you knew was so creepy that you decided to distance yourself from them? Dude a year younger than me in my sophomore gym class. Came out as gay and was basically ostracized. He was quirky and didn't have the best hygiene, of course he was to be avoided. I decided to be nice to him, offered to be his gym partner because I have also been bullied for being different. After a few weeks he turns into a nice guy and starts hitting on me hard. Gave off really rapey vibes. It was effing weird and he admitted he lied about being gay to get sympathy. I avoided him like the plague. Next year, I'm in a trade school for my junior year. Homeschool goes into lockdown because dude stole a gun, shot his mom 6 times, and was making his way to the high school with a hit list. Holy crap. Did you ever find out if you were on that list? Police wouldn't release the details so it wouldn't cause panic. He was also a minor, so he isn't even named in the article about it. He made threats to me before, after I started ignoring him. So I wouldn't be surprised if I was. She loved misery. I was driving her to work, lived on my couch, and she was sobbing hysterically in the passenger seat. She really hated her job and was an unbalanced person. We come across a horrible wreck, tears dry up instantly and she gets this huge smile. I've never seen her so happy. I ask what caused the sudden change and she starts laughing like a lunatic, side-splitting giggles. She says that it looks like there were some fatalities due to the wreck and seeing it just made her day. I was pretty disgusted/creeped out. She was absolutely chipper for the next 2 days. I once went on a date with this guy I met who used to donate blood at my work. We went to dinner and it went pretty well. After dinner, we decided to continue talking in his car. We started making out for a while and eventually stopped it since it was getting a little too hot and heavy for a first date. We continued talking in his car and this is when he decides to talk a little too much about how he really enjoys sex and BDSM. Anytime I tried to change the subject it would always go back to that. He then tells me that he especially enjoys knife play and would love cutting me and that he enjoys watching videos of people getting slowly cut. I played it off saying I wasn't into that kind of thing and told him it was getting pretty late and I should go. I haven't seen him since. I used to play D&D and HS with a group of friends. There was this really uptight guy who would always be very excited about the prospect. I was the DM and convinced my friends to try him out for a few sessions. Turns out he was just socially awkward due to very mild autism. He was hilarious at the meetings and we all enjoyed having him around. Although he had a huge crush on my cousin who played and was very socially awkward about it. My cousin found him attractive and actually dated him for a while and slept with him. On Halloween we are having a game and my cousin is dressed as a slutty zombie. Granted she called it dressed as a zombie but it was a slutty zombie. He was acting very weird and behaving very strangely the entire game. We all noticed it and my cousin was quite concerned, when he looked like he was going to just explode on us in anger. She walked around over to him and he freaked out and she just said, "Oh my god. WTF name." She looked at us. "He is masturbating under the table." He freaked out and stood up without zipping, walked out into the bathroom and came back trying to act all normal and wanted to continue the game. He legitimately did not understand the severity of what he just did. It was the saddest thing I ever did removing him from group after that. He legit did not understand why we wanted him gone. A girl I know likes to make people cry. Just that, she enjoys watching someone cry and she is trying constantly to lead people into it. I talked to her about it after a mutual friend lost his father in a car accident, and she would start the conversation about just to make him cry. She said she didn't think it was a bad thing and that everyone does it. I told her she should get some help about it, but she said it's something she enjoys so it doesn't need to be taken care of. A girl I know not only enjoys making people cry, but actively gets off on the pain of others. Like she has a mixed vial of blood she keeps from all of the people who she cuts. She works as a dominatrix and assured me everything she did was consensual. Okay, cool, party on. Then one night she told me about how she purposefully tripped a skipping little girl in order to make her fall. The little girl completely smashed her face open. The girl I know told this story in the context of how horny blood and tearing flesh and pain makes her, and how hot it had made her to completely destroy this perfect vision of naive, pure glee when she effed the kid up. She got arrested for murder in connection to some drugs she had sold someone that a person had OD'd on. In the raid, the police found not only machetes with dried blood on them, which I guess is expected, but also a live grenade and a bunch of ammo for an AK-47. The girl I know was caught/arrested because a runner for her had accidentally befriended/brought over an undercover cop. I don't even know where to start. She also has a self-described stabbing problem, and shuddered when she was describing how amazing it felt to feel a knife enter someone's flesh. And that in high school she would start fights with people, just so that they would fight back so that she would feel justified about stabbing them in self-defense. Kid me learned, from my mother, that the girl down the block squeezed her hamster to death, so I was no longer allowed over. Oh gosh, do you know where she is now? I ran into her when we were around 21 and she said that she is doing much better. This is a bit sad. It turned out she had Tourette's syndrome and attributed the death hug, squeeze really, to a complex tic. She said her symptoms are very managed now, though she was looking to score some cocaine at the time, so there was that. I hope since then things have continued to get better for her. My high school boyfriend tried to convince me to complete a suicide pact with him so we'd be together forever. He talked about how romantic it would be if we died together. Because of other things he'd said, I distanced myself from him slowly. He legit scared me. He still kind of scares me even though I moved thousands of miles away and it's been years since we split. He's got some serious issues. My friends and I in college knew a girl on our floor in the dorms, who purposely kept her case of chlamydia for months, just to try and infect all of the guys that wronged her during her undergrad. When it finally dawned on me that all of his friends were teenagers, most of them girls, and that I wasn't just so mature for my age, that a man in his early 20s found me exceptionally fun to hang out with. I tried to discuss this with some of my girlfriends that he was friends with, but none of them saw the issue. I remember saying, "What would a 21-year-old guy be getting from hanging out with a bunch of 13 to 15-year-olds?" And feeling like the answer was just so obvious, how could they not see it? And they were all so offended at the concept that maybe we weren't just the coolest people alive. Amber even said, "Because we're more mature than normal 14-year-olds. But we're still 14, Amber. Why is he not hanging out with people from his college?" So I just stopped going out with them when he was around. They eventually stopped hanging out with him, after he dated and subsequently broke up with a few of them. Stuff like that makes my skin crawl now as an adult. If I ever have kids, I don't know how I'm gonna feel comfortable letting them ever leave the house alone. He thought childhood sexual abuse was beneficial. A former dear friend of mine was in a Discord chat with my two other friends and just asked why CSA laws exist since it can only be good for a child to be abused. He was convinced that children need to be diddled in order to know if they are gay or straight and that it wouldn't be bad or do internal damage to a child of either sex. He said this in a group chat with 3 CSA survivors. He will never meet my children, which is a shame because we've been friends for 13 years, but I refuse to risk my children's safety just to keep a friendship. I'm a 24-year-old guy and the only person I tried to avoid is the guy that hosted the foreign exchange students while I was in high school. He was a normal-looking 50-year-old guy that was single and lived by himself, but he always hosted foreign exchange students every year, and I was usually friends with them. I too give an example of some of the things he has done that creeped me out. First time meeting him, we were going to an amusement park with a German foreign exchange student. As I get in the car, he says, "You're actually pretty ugly. From far away you looked good, but you're ugly up close." I'm just like, That was the first thing he ever said to me. Later that day while driving there, somehow they started talking about avalanches, and he said, "If we were driving and an avalanche was covering us and we were trapped, I would just F you guys all in the butt. If I knew we were going to die, I would hold each of you down and F each of you in the butt." It was me, the German guy, and a girl all around 16 years old. They all thought it was funny. He didn't smile when he said these things. It made me insanely uncomfortable. He asked if I was a virgin, and was making fun of me constantly about it, that I was. Another time he randomly messaged me on Facebook and said, "Hey, if you ever come over and see me jerking off in front of the computer, just don't worry about it. Either that or you could join me." Then he asked me if I wanted to come over and watch movies with him, but he might be naked. That was the last straw. I blocked him on Facebook. The strange thing is this guy is loved by so many people. A lot of the parents at the school I went to loved him, and the teachers, and he was friends with a ton of people from my high school on Facebook. His sense of humor just didn't sit well with me, Pretty much everything he said made me uncomfortable. Legit a pedophile? Report him. Creepy Larry, not his name. Holy crap. My friend was dating this guy who had a pretty weird background. Parents did culty things, no one really knew where he came from, etc. I've never seen the warning signs of a serial killer so clearly exhibited. The dude would find half-dead roadkill, finish them off, and then hoist their bodies from trees until the flesh was gone so he could turn their bones into jewelry. I only met him once, and I'm not especially good at reading people, but I'm not an idiot. The dude made all the hair on my neck stand up. He had a really flat effect and didn't really seem to understand how to interact with anyone. Just sat in the middle of a party silently drawing a picture. I think it was some sort of face, but the features were all wrong and distorted. At one point in the party he brought out wooden LARPing swords and hit a kid so hard he passed out, and then didn't tell anyone what happened. Just left him there on the ground and went back to the party to keep fighting with people. He's not with my friend anymore but works at my local grocery store and has the coldest stare I've ever seen. F creepy Larry dude. I used to be friends with someone who was legit delusional about a sports celebrity figure, to the point where I was so creeped out that I couldn't stand being around her. She committed fraud to get tens of thousands of dollars to move to the city he lives in / plays in so she can go to every game. She started learning another language so they could communicate, he's not a native English speaker, etc. Even went so far as to live her life around the number he wears, i.e., the temperature is only ever set at that number, because it's his number. Thankfully it's something vaguely reasonable. She once held up a sign at a game and he saw it, and she was 100% convinced that he'd remember her forever. The sports figure is also married, to a supermodel, of course, and she was obsessed with the wife too. There were other awful behaviors, but she was so obsessed that I literally couldn't stand to be around her. I had a friend in college who I thought was just a friend. Always thought she was so cool because she'd do anything for anyone. Turns out it was just me and most of the stories were lies. She was prescribed painkillers for something and had no problems sharing them as we hung out and smoked often. We'd drive outside of campus through the cornfields and get high, listening to music and talking. One day she picks me up at my dorm and offers me a drink. Cool, but it's already open. Really, I thought nothing of it. I take a sip and think something is off. I taste the painkillers. Okay, maybe I'm paranoid. I ask her to take me home and she asks if we can stop by her place first. Okay, I think it's a bit strange. We walk in and it's literally trashed, dishes piled up, a few bags of trash laying around. She starts going off about how much she cleans and her roommates just trash the place, how she just did the dishes yesterday and took out the trash. I'm seeing food dried to plates, trying hard to understand how 4 girls can make 3 bags of trash in 24 hours, no effing way she was telling the truth. Then I realized how she was cleaning, dropping it low, thong showing, flirtatious talking. Now I realize I'm starting to feel the effects of the painkillers, blurred vision, itchy skin, and I need to get the hell out now. Texted my brother to meet me in the middle of campus and to keep heading towards her place if I didn't show up. Last thing I remember is hugging my brother and then I woke up the next day. She never tried to speak to me again, but made sure to ask everyone we knew why I was mad at her to see if I told anyone. You're lucky I didn't, Jessica. If a girl is obsessed with horses, run far, run fast and don't look back. Dude. You were roofied. You almost got raped. Growing up, my best friend's cousin was so creepy that we really went out of our way to avoid having to hang out with him. There was a koi pond at their house and this little poop would pick a fish out of the water and smash its head with a hammer. Just like that. Out of nowhere and for no reason. He did that a few more times and I'm not sure why his parents never did anything about it. What a weirdo. Apparently he's married now, lol. I had an older male friend from work that I started hanging out with occasionally. He came off as really smart and normal, he legit was on Jeopardy and won, and I enjoyed hanging out with him, until one day. We went to grab a few groceries at the corner store near his place, where a very young girl was stocking shelves. He kept eyeing her and finally whispered to me. You know, 12 years old should be old enough. The laws are so ridiculous in this country. You leave the States and people have a different attitude. He was a regular traveler to Thailand, and suddenly it was all becoming clear to me. I couldn't get away from him fast enough, Literally got in my car and left. At work the next day he tried to talk to me, but ignored him and put in my 2 weeks. He made me sick. I walked into my apartment that I shared with a roommate. Right as I walk in, he had his girlfriend pinned down on the floor and her shirt was ripped. She's crying and they both look up at me. She gets up and takes off running out the door and he goes to his room. Not a word spoken. I kicked him out the next day. Don't know if it was a rapey situation, or a domestic fight type thing, but the look in his eyes said all I needed to know. I didn't know the girl to reach out to her and this was pre-Facebook, everyone connected days. Police took a report from me but nothing came of it, assumingly because she didn't report it. This was actually rather recent, as we just moved into our new house not too long ago. I was home alone while my boyfriend was at work, and decided to brush the dog out while sitting on the front porch. A short, balding man comes hobbling over from a rather long way across the street, clad in socks and walking on hot gravel. He introduced himself, saying he wanted to say hi to the new neighbors, since the last lady was antisocial. I didn't want to invite him in, since I was home alone and didn't know him, so we talked in the hot sun. He told me how he had childhood cancer, and that he started smoking at 5 years old, and that he has severe bipolar, and you shouldn't make him angry. The neighbors were apparently jerks because they didn't want him riding his ridiculously loud four-wheeler down the street at all hours of the night. We talked for 2 hours. All the while, he nursed a single cigarette. His speech patterns reminded me of a drunk, but I couldn't smell it on him through the intense smoke smell. One of his stories revolved around how he used to be an alcoholic, and the horrible actions he took. Apparently he stopped drinking, though you couldn't tell through the way he spoke. I was saved by the internet installer showing up, thankfully. This guy creeped me out big time. Whenever I would try to end the conversation, he would move as if we were both heading into the house. A few weeks later, I was at the side of the house, tending to our new garden. This area had no windows or entrance to the main house, along with no neighbors. Guess who came stumbling over to me? Luckily, my boyfriend was home this time, and saw him heading my way through the front window. He came around the side of the house to introduce himself. The neighbor repeats pretty much exactly what he told me the first time, peppering in movies he likes, and his preference for Rottweilers. Then he threw in an extra added detail that I didn't hear the first time. He was a sex offender. Of a 6-year-old. The neighbor claimed it to be a false accusation. I would hate to be in that situation, so I'd like to believe it was a wrong place/wrong time story. However, he kept repeating the phrase, "You make one mistake." Over and over. One mistake and it ruins your life forever. I barely touched her. The parents overreacted. The way he phrased it definitely didn't convince us. He creeped me out prior to him admitting this, so I can't exactly say he convinced either one of us strongly. We looked him up online later, and found a surprise. There were 3 sex offenders on the street, one of them being the previous owner's realtor. He invited us to go boating with him. He also sodomized a 9-year-old. I wonder why the lady, who lived here before, was antisocial. A kid in high school told me he had dreams of shooting up the school, and listed off the people he would go after first. I distanced myself, but made sure to be extra nice to him when I did have to interact with him. The girl at my old school, who right after I came out as bi to my friends at the table, smiled and told us she was attracted to animals. Didn't talk to her much after that.